Let's journey back to 7th century Arabia. A new community is just putting down roots in Medina, and they're about to build something that will define them for generations to come. You see, this story isn't just about walls and a roof. It's about building the very foundation of a civilization. So, how'd they do it?
Well, the very first act tells you everything you need to know. The first brick isn't laid by some dignitary in a fancy ceremony. No, it's carried by the prophet himself. His hands are right there in the dust with everyone else, carrying stones, moving bricks, digging into the earth. This wasn't for show. It was a lesson, taught without saying a single word. And really, that's the big question we're tackling today. How do you build a physical space that creates something invisible, something powerful, the very spirit of a society? The story of this first masjid, well, it holds the blueprint.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation, because it wasn't just built on piety. You could say it was built from piety. The choice of materials here was a deliberate and really powerful statement. This verse from the Quran, this was the guiding principle. It says that a building's true worth isn't in how grand it looks, but in the intention, the why behind it. So that foundation had to be taqwa, piety, a consciousness of God, from the very first day.
So what did that actually look like? Well, the walls were made of humble earth and sun-dried bricks. The pillars, they were sturdy palm tree trunks, and the roof was a simple covering of palm leaves. This was architecture with a clear purpose, strong, firm, and built for devotion, not for showing off.
Now, there was another mosque built nearby around the same time, but prominent scholars, people like Ibn Jarir at-Tabari and Ibn Taymiyyah, they were clear. They affirmed that this verse, the one about a foundation of piety, was a direct reference to the Prophet's mosque in Medina. The proof was in its purpose and in its people. And this is where it gets really interesting. This building was so much more than just a place for prayer. It literally became the living, breathing heartbeat of the entire city. It showed everyone that Islam wasn't just a set of rituals, but a complete and comprehensive guide for life. I mean, just think about the sheer scope of what happened here. It was a university for anyone seeking knowledge. It was a sanctuary for the poor and for travelers who had nowhere else to stay. It was a political center, a diplomatic hub for foreign delegates, a military command center, and get this, even a hospital for the wounded. The whole shebang. Just picture it. Inside these simple, earthy walls, knowledge was everything. The Prophet actually said that whoever comes into this masjid just to learn or teach something good, they're like a warrior fighting for God's cause. That's how important education was. It was a place of refuge, a true safe haven. The poorest members of the community, especially those who had migrated, the Muhajirun, they found shelter and dignity right here. It was a place where you didn't have to rely on anyone but God and the community he had brought together. And its strategic importance was undeniable. From this very building, messengers were sent to foreign lands, powerful delegations were received, and military banners were handed out. It was the nerve center of a new, growing nation. But you know, the most profound lessons, they weren't taught in lectures. They were learned right there in the dust and the sweat of the construction itself. The process was the lesson. Think about it. When the leader, the prophet, is working right alongside his followers, he's teaching a massive lesson. Everyone is equal before Allah. The only thing that makes one person different from another is their piety, their taqwa. Your status, your wealth, your family name, none of that mattered when it was time to lift the bricks. And there's this one story that perfectly illustrates this. A newcomer, a guy named Talq, was helping out, and it quickly became obvious that he was way better at mixing clay than anyone else. So what did the prophet do? Did he give the job to a close friend, a person of high status? Nope. He just said, let him mix the clay, for he is more knowledgeable at doing that task. Real leadership is about recognizing skill and putting the best person on the job, period. Which brings us to a final, crucial point. This whole principle, purpose over presentation, it defined the masjid's entire feel. Its lack of fancy decoration wasn't a flaw, it was actually its greatest feature. Look at the contrast. The simple earthen structure made you feel humble. It was a place where the poorest person in the city could walk in and feel comfort, peace, and a direct connection to the divine. But later, as mosques became more extravagant with gold and carvings, they could sometimes have the opposite effect, reminding the poor of what they didn't have and distracting the heart with all that worldly beauty. Because the point was never to be impressed by the building. The point was to be in awe of God. All that extravagant decoration risked shifting the focus from glorifying the creator to admiring the genius of the architect. You see, the building was meant to be a tool for worship, not the object of worship itself. And yet, within all this profound simplicity, there was a space of just unparalleled spiritual beauty. A small patch of land described in a narration from Abu Huraira that came with this incredible promise. This space, known as the Ar-Rauda, wasn't defined by gold or marble, but by its holiness. It was, and still is, considered a garden from the gardens of paradise, right here on earth. It's the ultimate testament that true beauty, true value, it doesn't come from what we build, but from what God blesses. So the first Masjid of Medina was made of clay and stone and palm trunks, but it was truly built from piety, equality, practicality, and focus. It wasn't just a place to pray, it was a lesson in how to live. Which really leaves us with one final thought. Can a building still teach us that today?